with actors. He gave them every opportunity to do whatever they wanted. And I know for a fact, because I've worked 3 times with Jack. I've been lucky enough to work with him 3 times. 2 of them with Sean Penn directing, who's an excellent director, by the way. I just did a film with him last year, which I think is going to be a very good film. It'll be called The Last Face. Charlize Theron and Javier Bardem, which we shot in Africa. It's all set in the refugee camps in Sierra Leone, Sudan, and very interesting. And a little bit in the United Nations in Switzerland we shot. Sierra Leone and Liberia. So a big film. I think it'll be a very good movie. He's a good director. No, all those conspiracy theories, absolute crap. I mean, old Stanley used to say to me when we didn't know what we were doing, he said, well, we'll let the French film critics tell us what this was supposed to be about. No pitch standards line on those sort of things. Very, very, very funny man. I mean, very humorous guy, Stanley, very dry, and had a very good dry sense of humor about people in the film industry, that's for sure.
I love talking to that guy.
Yeah,
I'm jealous. I'm so jealous.
Guy. Interesting, but I
the hard part is it was an hour and a half conversation.
I bet.
Like we talked for so long about so much. He's the one who told me about the typewriter or the pages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how I know.
Well, he also had that to say about the continuity thing. He said, that's not a conspiracy. It's just that sometimes he would look at it and say, that chair just doesn't. It really kind of changes the balance of the scene. So let's pull that chair out. Then the next scene, the chair's back in.
Continuity was not as important as the shot.
Yeah.
So
it was really nice of him to actually make the time.
Oh yeah, I dropped everything and ran. So
of course,
big thank you to Brian.
And
everybody who helped us get that. That was fantastic.
I think Steve said, "Listen to this interview so that we can talk about it a little bit," and I just responded with, "How did you get that interview?"
Yeah, I know.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool. But I think he makes some really, really good points.
Fantastic points.
Because, in fairness, right, like, you want to believe there's so much lore around Stanley Kubrick, right? So people say, like, oh, he had an IQ of 200, which is bunk. I mean, maybe he did. He seemed like he was, like, a really, really smart guy.
I don't know if anybody has an IQ of 200.
Right. But I think that to make claims that The Shining of all of his movies had all of this subtext, I think he wanted to make a horror movie.
Well, he did.
Yeah.
And
he
I
absolutely
think,
did.
And yeah, like he, like it says in the interview, like Jack Nicholson realized real quick, like, hey, maybe don't give 100% on your first take. Like, it's never going to be perfect. And I think that explains so much of the movie. Like, especially since you're working with an actual 5-year-old, when you get into the continuity of, oh, the carpet was different. Like, well, he was a 5-year-old. Like, they took it from different angles.
They came back the next day and they didn't check their Polaroids to know what the scene exactly was set up as. I mean, all these things happen.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
So my personal take is that Stanley was a great director and a great filmmaker, and he had a fantastic eye for detail for what should and shouldn't be in the shot. His use of one-point perspective is... I've never seen anybody else pull it off like he does. He was great at what he did.
Yeah.
Was he making all of these overt or not overt things? I don't think so. I think that he left so much open to interpretation on purpose, not knowing that people were going to go nuts, and it drove him crazy because there are statements from him saying, some whack job makes something up, but then it sticks and it won't go away.
Yeah.
And I can't say enough that it's not right.
Yeah.
So the genie got out of the bottle.
Yeah.
Much more than I think he intended.
Yeah, as Deb and I both said repeatedly, if he'd wanted to make a movie about the Indians or the Holocaust or whatever, he would have just done it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, there was that big question mark on all of his movies, sure, but he made movies about what he wanted to make movies about. And sometimes you just have to set a sense of place where, like, a kid happens to wear a Goodwill sweater of Apollo 11 or...
Things that a boy of that age at that time would wear is what he was looking for.
Back in those days, the space program was still a big thing among kids. When I was a kid, I was all nuts about the space program. I thought it was really awesome.
You still are. You got that helmet that we have to make
It's
you
weird.
take off before we record.
Because we can't hear you.
Wow.
Weird.
The force is strong
No.
in this one.
I think I don't know. I think it's fair to say that there were just a lot of takes that happened with this movie, and
Yeah.
it's not a whole lot deeper than it should have been.
I would agree wholeheartedly.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, everybody, we are going to go ahead and put a bow on this one.
Finally.
Yeah,
Finally,
really.
this is a longer one than I realized it was going to be. We will have links and this episode, of course, as always, on our website, which is thinkingsidewayspodcast.com. And you can stream the show from there or download it. A lot of folks use iTunes, and a lot of folks stream through other services. If you're on iTunes, do take the time to leave a rating and a comment. We have been moving up the charts, which is absolutely great. We're really enjoying that. We are on a couple of places for social media. We're going to be on Twitter. We are on Twitter.
We are.
We are on Twitter, and we are at Thinkin' Sideways without the G in the middle. We do tweet on a sort of regular, maybe happen basis.
I'm tweeting right now.
Ooh.
Are we on Facebooka?
We are on Facebook. We have the Facebook group and the Facebook page, both of which are a lot of fun. And if you have any thoughts about what we've talked about or the things that we've missed, and I apologize, this episode is long already, and there is so much lore and little facts and details that we had to cut. We couldn't bring in.
Yeah,
so
but
be
you just-
aware that we didn't not know a lot of these Kubrick things. It just takes a while to talk about them.
Yeah, and then we have that interview that basically tells everything.
Yep, but if you've got something great to share about Kubrick and you want to, you can send us an email at thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. Apologize to folks in advance because I know that we've been okay about it, but there's a big event that is coming that is going to be around the time that this episode drops, so we might be a little bit delinquent.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
It took all of us away. And last, but certainly not least, if you like what we do here at the show and you're enjoying it, you do consider helping support the show to put out more episodes like this. We're on Patreon, so it's Patreon/Thinking Sideways, Patreon.com.
Yeah.
/Thinking Sideways. You can go there. You can set an amount that you would like to donate to the show per episode, completely voluntary.
Absolutely voluntary.
If you decide you don't want to do it anymore, you can quit, or it's just not your bag. Great.
Yeah.
We're going to keep doing this, but we do appreciate all of that help.
Yeah, no pressure, because I certainly don't hit the tip jar at every blog that I go to. So
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I know. I try, but it's hard
Yeah.
because there are so many out there. We understand that.
there are. Yeah.
That I think that's enough. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and sign off, and we will talk to you next week.
Oh, bye, guys.
Yeah. Ta-ta.
Oh, hey guys.
What's up?
So
What?
we actually didn't leave yet. Listen, there was so much great audio in in my conversation with Brian that I wanted to share a little bit more of it with you. It didn't fit in the path of the podcast in terms of where we were in the story and in the theories, but this is great stuff about the things that he did, and so we're going to bring that to you right now.
And so much bleeping, you guys. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, there's a little bit of bleeping.
There's a good number of bleeps
Yeah.
there. So.
Yeah.
If we didn't edit our show, this is what it would sound like too.
Yeah. I'm not putting Brian down because I certainly say those words too.
Yeah.
Oh, no. No.
Yeah.
It absolutely happened.
Yeah.
Enjoy, you guys.
Okay, goodbye for reals.
Yeah, we mean it this time.
But that conspiracy stuff, I mean, it's just nonsense. That's all you can say about it, to be honest. It's hard to sort of make a program on it because, it's difficult. I don't know quite how you do it. Just you look at all the things and say, well, this is not true.
Well, that's kind of what we do, is we find what we can to pull apart, and then we just give everything else and say, this is what they say.
Yeah, and, I can assure you that none of that ever came into play. I mean, you could feel from what I've been talking to you about the tiny, minutiae, detailed trivia that we used to play with. I want to know. And you know, Stanley used to have the payroll printed out every week. He'd look at the petty cash, the whole everything. I mean, you know, you don't know how Stanley had time to do all this. And even think about directing the film. That was the last thing that came to mind. Get around to doing it, you know. But you get used to it, and you get used to working his way, and he's very loyal. And you find all these, what I call big, good directors. You look at the credits over the years, same old cameramen, same old production designers, same old editors, same old assistant directors. When they get somebody who they can also get on with, because if you're working with someone like Stanley, I mean, I was there for 2.5 years on the last picture.
That's a long time.
Yeah, well, we shot for 1.5 years nearly or something, with a lot of stops, but I mean, we shot for nearly 300 days. You know, you need to have people that you can get on with. I mean, it's not, and I must say, you know, in fairness, someone like Tom, I mean, he was incredible on the last film, I thought. I mean, he's a very easy guy to get on with, and was, of course, I used to say to him, I can't understand, you better get a new agent. I mean, you're here for 18 months, I can't believe you've got an open-ended deal, you should have talked to Jack. Maybe yours. You know, he used to keep coming to me and saying, Brian, I've got 3 other films to make. I said, we haven't even started. I said, don't worry about can you see the light at the end of the tunnel. I said, you haven't even left the hotel to go to the station to get on the train yet. Don't find a tunnel. I mean, nice guy, though. And got on very well with Stanley. I remember only 2 occasions in 18 months when he lost his rag a bit. And that was only during rehearsal when there was no one there. I happened to be outside the door where I used to be when the rehearsal was just with 2 or 3 actors and Stanley. And he'd come straight back after 5 minutes and apologise, you know. Yeah, nice guy. I liked him very much. And I've worked with Nicole quite a bit, so, you know, I knew them very well, really.
Yeah.
So, that they were fine. Strange movie, strange choice of movie. I was very surprised when I read the script that that's what we were going to make. Because really Stanley wanted to do AI, you know, that's what he planned on doing. But I think the studio were a little, who knows whether it's true or not. My guess was that they were very, you know, would have been a very, very expensive film.
Yeah.
With Stanley doing it. Would have been a very different film to Spielberg's efforts on it. Would have been a very different film. But he'd spent a lot of time preparing it, you know. I think they wanted to make a smaller film, and I think the idea was that Warner's were going to split it with Steven Spielberg in terms of financing it, you know. Stanley. That was the idea, but I mean, there's no such thing as making a small film with Stanley, you know what I mean? That word doesn't exist. And it's very difficult for these sort of guys because you've got to try and do something better than you've done before. It was the same problem for David Lean. You know, my father did 6 films with David Lean. Where are you based?
We're based out of Portland, Oregon.
Oh, right. Well, of course, you're up to the Overlook Hotel. That's
yeah. Yeah, I have not been, but I know Joe has been to the Timberline, one of the other co-hosts.
Sure, of course.
But yeah, so a lot of that footage, it's very familiar.
Yeah, of course, I'm sure. And of course, the opening sequence, which I got Greg to do in the end, was in Heaven's Gate country, of course, where we were in Glacier National Park.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, he did a great job for us, Greg, you know. He's a top man. Very good. I'd worked with him in Greece many years ago on a film with James Coburn called The Skyriders, and they were really terrific, Jim, and he got killed, unfortunately, on a scouting trip for a commercial. That chopper came down. Jim Freeman. Yeah, very sad. But, yeah, he's a good guy, Greg McGilvey. He did a great job on that opening sequence.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, never worked by car. We spent 3 months there f***ing around doing it from front to back of camera cars, yeah. Yeah, no good at all. I knew that would be a f***up. But, you know, usual stuff with Stanley, you start, you know, on the cheap and then have to spend the money.
Yep.
But, you know, he wasn't worried about the schedule. Stanley was more interested in the weekly running costs. He would keep those as low as possible.
Yeah.
Small crew, apart from when you needed them, you know, to keep costs down, because he knew he was going to shoot for a long time, you know. And but he certainly was a unique guy, no question about that. I mean, a true visionary. My father, who did a lot of stuff, 6 films with David Lean, and also worked with Stanley, said that for him, David Lean was the best storyteller of all of the big directors, and he'd worked with Huston a lot. And he thought David Lean was the best storyteller of a major novel, bringing it to the screen, and that Stanley was more of a visionary who had terrific vision for movies, you know. I think that was a pretty good description of it from the old man, actually, because I think that's the case. I mean, David Lean was a wonderful director of and of course all these guys, these big guys, they can work on a big canvas, which a lot of them can't do. I mean, I did a lot of films with Michael Cimino. I know not that successfully in the last few years from Heaven's Gate, but Michael could work on a big canvas. You know, Coppola can, Ridley can, Michael Mann, Cameron, you know, these guys can. Many directors can't. They're very good on a smaller canvas. And make some very good films. Of course they do. I mean, excellent films. But, you know, that big canvas thing is something you've either got or you haven't, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's another world out there doing that. And also, you know, the costs that go with that on those sort of movies, they all escalate. I mean, particularly period films. You know, I've never understood anyone who ever thinks that they can make a big period film for the money that you start out with. It's just an impossibility. I mean, you only ever get the leading ladies on a period film for 6-7 hours a day, maximum. Because, you know, time you get them there in the mornings, you get them ready, a couple of hours at least getting them ready, dressing them, lunch, take all the gear off, get them back after lunch, remake up, the travel time, all the bullshit. You know, I think, you know, my experience is you get 6-7 hours working day off of a leading lady on a big period movie. Well, I mean, everyone schedules these things for the 12-hour day. Well, it's non-existent. How no one's ever worked that out in the studio, it amazes me every time we talk about it. It's very...
That's hilarious.
But of course, the thing is, you know, once you start on those big films, it's like a great big tanker at sea, and stopping them and turning them around is a whole different ballgame, you know?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. I mean, you just got to hope that, you know, you get lucky.
I heard a phrase the other day, trying to turn the Titanic with a canoe paddle, and that sounds like that's appropriate.
I've been on a few of those. Yeah.
Thinking Sideways is not brought to you by Precariously Balanced Dishware. Instead, it's supported by the generous donations of our listeners on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/Thinking Sideways to learn more. And thanks.
Thinking Sideways.
I don't understand.
Does not compute.
You never know.
Insufficient data to formulate a reply.
What?
Stories of things we simply don't know the answer to.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Thinking Sideways, the podcast. I'm Devin. I'm joined, as always, by
Joe
and
Steve.
I'll let them introduce themselves.
Yay!
Those guys over there.
Yeah, us.
We're going to talk about a mystery that you probably haven't heard of tonight. It's called the Lake City Quiet Pills. And strap in, because it's going to be a long one.
We're going to talk really
slowly. Yeah.
So I'm going to talk normal.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you
You
go.
are. And with the upwards inflection, if you would, please.
Slowly?
Yes.
There you go.
Perfect. My interest in this case actually came from a message I got on Reddit from a user by the name of Captain Cannibal.
Nice.
Great name.
And to be up front, because I know some people take issue with this when we do episodes like this mystery, pretty much everything that literally everything that you find on it is on Reddit or on the actual sources that we're going to talk about.
It's an internet-based mystery.
It's an internet-based mystery, but beyond that, it's a very obscure internet-based mystery. So you can't go out. There's not a Wikipedia page about this, for instance, right? There's not articles about this. There's not a huge amount of information about this mystery. So the sources are fairly condensed, but we have gone to the actual source. We've done interviews. We did our research on this one. as these guys can tell you because I've been talking about it for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Well, there's people on Reddit who've been talking about it for years and
years and years. And so I just want to say that up front. Yes, we're going to talk about Reddit a lot, and that's our primary source for this, but there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
And as far as I can tell, this story starts with a Reddit user. Weird, because it's a Reddit thing. Well, okay, it starts with a few Reddit users. Okay, maybe it just starts with this user whose name was Zaskuan. But this user is no longer a user on Reddit. Their account has been deleted. And it started innocently enough. In 2009, a user, it was their first post, they made an account to make this post, and their username was 26. And they posted that user Religion of Peace had passed away, and it was reported that this user's real name was Milo, and that he was 79 years old. He was described as ornery and mean. And I wasn't on Reddit at this point in the game, but as far as I can tell, it definitely didn't have nearly as many subreddits as it did. The community was much more tight-knit.
Do you remember, when did Reddit officially start? I'm trying to remember. It was
2008, maybe?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay, so it was only like a year or so old, so it makes sense that it wouldn't be the sprawling beast that it is today.
Yeah, so actually the big thing that happened in today's history of Reddit, Dig. Do you guys remember Dig?
Yeah.
That website? There was this website that was kind of the precursor to Reddit called Dig.
Because you could dig it.
Mm-hmm, you could dig it. And there was this huge exodus that happened. And I'll be honest, I don't remember why, nor did I look it up, because I don't care. But this huge exodus happened of Dig, and that happened, I would say, mid to late 2009. So it was just after this whole thing kind of got started, and that's when a huge influx of users started to come to Reddit, and it kind of started to develop into the community that it is today.
Got it. So that's where the large base of users came from for Reddit.
A lot of them.
Okay.
Not all of them, certainly, but...
I didn't know that. That's interesting. Okay, got it.
So the news of Milo's death did seem to hit a lot of people hard. I guess he was a pretty well-known user. He had reportedly, he was the kind of guy, he enlisted at the military at 14 to fight the Nazis. He had lied about his age. There's a lot of lore around this guy. He tells a lot of stories. He had set up a fair number of people with quote-unquote gigs after they left their military service.
Like mercenary type jobs?
Yeah, I don't know. That he was kind of this mean but enigmatic character, I guess. Oh, he was also the mod of the subreddit Jailbait, r/Jailbait, and then r/Real Jailbait.
Ever?
No.
That anybody should ever see.
Well, it wasn't. I think actually, if I recall correctly, that famous quote about child pornography, the "I don't know what it is, but I know it when I see it" quote. Do you remember this? There was like a Supreme Court justice who they said, "Well, what is child pornography?" And he said, "I don't know what it is, but I know it when I see it."
I think it was. I can't remember who it was, but I think it was like, what is obscenity? And I don't know what obscenity is, but I know it when I see it.
I believe maybe. Yeah. Anyway, this whole Jailbait and Real Jailbait, they weren't naked pictures.
Oh,
they were just pictures of attractive underage girls.
That's even worse.
Well,
let's move forward, please.
So Milo apparently owned this website called That Old Guy's Image Host, which had been set up for him by 26, that user that we were talking about 2 seconds ago.
The one who set up the account to say that he had passed away.
To let everyone know that he had passed away, yeah. And That Old Guy's Image Host was a image hosting site, primarily for pornography, but it was kind of like Imgur a little bit. It was just, there were a lot out there at that time. But they set this one up so they wouldn't be restricted by anyone else's rules, or I guess Milo set it up so he wouldn't be restricted by anyone else's rules.
Except for the feds when they catch up with you.
Well, it was child and adult pornography, and the only rules were no bestiality and no bodily fluids. And the domain name for this website was LakeCityQuietPills.com.
Well, that's where mystery gets its name, I guess.
Yeah. For reasons unknown, user Zaskuan started poking around the HTML. I've heard this is a thing that coders do, and just on habit, basically, is they check the source code.
I've actually done it to websites to see how they did something.
Mm-hmm. But I think on this one, some people just kind of, they just poke around.
It's just their hobby.
Yeah, so he just viewed the source code of LakeCityQuietPills.com and found something odd, which appeared to be messages, like a job posting board. And he posted, I'm sorry, I should pause here to say, I'm just assigning the he pronoun to this user. No idea at all, just assigning that pronoun because I guess that's what you do. Anyways, this user posted a transcript of the messages that were found in the root source on the subreddit WTF, and you can still see that post today. And it reads like a job board.
Sure does.
And a while later, another Redditor, Steroa, was poking around to follow up or see interesting things themselves.
Yeah, that's again in the source code for the website.
In the source code of the website, yeah. And realized that the code actually had been changed to a cipher or number encryption. At this point, user Xenophobe51 was also caught up in the case. And they were kind of the two big posters about this. And this was, so this was 5-6 years ago. And they were the two kind of push investigators on this. And then about a year ago, two new investigators kind of came in on this, and they were Jason Lee and MDAX8414. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself here.
All right, slow down.
Sorry, slow down.
Yeah.
5 years ago, when all the users started to notice these things, they started to post actually really pleas for help, saying, hey, we found this thing, we know it sounds crazy, but can you guys help us try and translate it? Can you help us investigate it? Just, it's interesting.
Let's figure out what's going on.
And a lot of other Reddit users started saying that they thought that it was actually an ARG. You guys remember ARGs?
Cicada
3301. Yeah, it's an alternate reality game. Oftentimes it's a marketing gimmick that was kind of tried to get people to create hype around a thing without actually explicitly saying what that thing was. It's an actual game that people play as well. It's not just a marketing gimmick.
Well, that's how they get people to get excited about it and generate all the buzz.
Sometimes, like I said, sometimes marketing gimmick, sometimes it's just an actual game that people play. Another user at this point does a Google on Lake City Quiet Pills, which apparently nobody had done at the time. I don't know why. I don't know. That's fine. And found some interesting things. This person found that a user on Fark.com, you guys remember Fark.com?
No, actually.
Really?
No.
What was Fark.com?
Oh, it was an internet link cultivating website. It just posted links to funny things. Anyways, there was a
clickbait.
Yeah, pretty much. There was a user on Fark.com with an address that was at LakeCityQuietPills.com named Angel26, and that user had been posting on Fark.com since 2001 with the slogan of, quote, dispensing Lake City Quiet Pills to lousy bastards in need of permanent rest since 1968, unquote. It's this bit of information, file it away. It'll be significant when we start talking about theories.
So that's Angel26. So since 1968. So he must have been born about 1950 then, right?
Yeah, maybe.
So what is we've got the website, and now we're finding a statement for the same thing of Lake City Quiet Pills. So what is the significance of that?
The speculation is, and I just fully agree with this, that a Lake City Quiet Pill is referring to the Lake City Ammunition Plant, which is a U.S. government-owned ammunition facility in Independence, Missouri. And they produce a range of ammunition for the use of the U.S. government, Army, Navy, things like that. It's
just massive, that place.
It's huge. Gosh, Joe, they produce what?
They produce military ammo, and it's not only for the government, but also some of it goes to civilian sales. Stuff like 5.56 and 7.62.
Which, I'm sorry, I don't know enough about guns.
Yeah, 5.56 is a rifle round. It's used in the M4 carbine that the military uses.
Okay, I know the M4. Got it.
Yeah, and then some of the the M14 and some of those rifles are chambered in 7.62, which is also known as 308. That's a civilian designation.
Okay.
Got it.
And then
9mm.
Things like 9mm, 50 cal, 20mm, which is the stuff they use in the nose guns of fighter jets.
Okay.
Yeah.
So big guns.
And again, this goes to the government, but also they sell to the civilian market too.
Yeah, and we know from some talking that we've done with some people that it's maybe not the most widely used slang term, but it is a military slang term. As a lot of special ops snipers use
Quiet
the term
pills?
Quiet pills.
Okay, not the Lake City part is only because of the munitions factory.
Yeah, so they use the term quiet pills.
Got it.
As kind of a tongue-in-cheek reference to killing somebody.
You got to have a sense of humor when you're in that
Right,
line of
I
work.
think you
right?
probably do, yeah. At some point, and I'm not sure when, it's not very clear to me when this happened, but the amateur investigators 5 years ago,
Just on Reddit.
discovered that old guy's image hosting was actually just an image hosting site for a larger forum site that was called drunkstepfather.com.
Nice, skeezy little name.
Classy, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's kind of like most of our listeners can put this in the frame of reference of it's Reddit's Imgur. As far as you can tell, Imgur was built as an image serving or an image hosting site specifically for Reddit. And it seems that was the case for this Drunk Stepfather website as well. So it turns out not every user on Drunk Stepfather was also a user on Lake City Quiet Pills, but every user on Lake City Quiet Pills was a user on Drunk Stepfather. Yes,
Okay.
Steve? Steve?
Yeah. No, I'm visualizing this. Okay, so it's
It's like square rectangle,
got it.
right?
Okay. Yep. Nope. That makes sense. So Lake City. So Lake City Quiet Pills would be the rectangle in this, and Drunk Stepfather would be
Opposite.
or no, the square, and Drunk Stepfather would be the rectangle. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Ah.
Yeah. Milo was, as some have put it, kind of like the grandfather of the organization that we're referring to as the Lake City Quiet Pills.
I was thinking of him more as kind of the skeezy den mother.
Yeah, okay. Whatever works for you.
It's a weird porn site. I consider him the skeezy den mother.
That's fair.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, if you're hosting a child porn site, then
Yeah.
So he, along with other key members, were very active members of the Drunk Stepfather forum. Milo was the old guy that old guy's image host was referring to. He owned the site. As far as we can tell, via the chats on the forum, he owned it, at least for a while, and he was the runner of it, I guess, as far as we can tell. And we'll get a little more into this because there was a Who Is that was run, and we'll talk about that.
I was going to
in a
ask
little
about
bit.
the Who Is. Okay.
Yeah, and I haven't mentioned this yet. Lake City Quiet Pills no longer exists. It's gone defunct. It's a defunct website. It's gone defunct in the last year.
It's actually probably a good thing because we're, 15, 20 minutes in, and you know that at least a dozen of our members, or listeners at work would have accidentally tried to go to that website.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And got fired. So we've saved you.
Yeah.
I
We
thought
waited.
I thought it actually got taken down a lot more recently than that, even.
It didn't get taken down. We'll talk about this in a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the key players in this case before we get too much further into this.
Okay. Well, tell us about Angel 26.
Let's talk about Angel 26.
That's the guy that was on Fark.com.
He was the guy that was on Fark.com,
Okay.
and there's a bit of mystery around this person because Angel 26 is almost definitely one person, but 26 is probably just like a title. So
Okay.
you'll get a number of different users posting under the moniker of 26. Make sense?
Yeah, the title was sort of passed around every couple of years, right?
Or months or days. Yeah.
So if I had a profile and my profile name was Super Steve, it would be Super Steve 26 if I got that title? Mm-hmm. Got it.
But not always. Sometimes you would just be 26 and then you'd be like, oh, well, Super Steve is running it right now. Super Steve is the 26 right now.
Wow, that just made that more confusing. Okay.
I know. So there
Great.
are 3 Drunk Stepfather users that we can pretty much undoubtedly say were 26 at some point. They were Jero Mank, JP4, and Pierce. Speculation is, like I said, however, that Angel 26 was their own person. We did an interview with one of the newer people who have been investigating this case on Reddit. This gentleman asked that we keep his identity a secret, so we're going to do that. But here's what he had to say about 26.
Angel 26 was a 26. I mean, there's multiple 26s. They seem to be the ones that are curators for it's hard to tell whether or not it's for the actual image searching or if it's for being the curator for all the jobs that are listed. I'm kind of leaning towards Shade holding that job, but there were quite a few 26s, so it may have been shared, and the responsibility may have been shared. Because Shade did have terminal cancer by the end at the end of his life, so could have been passed on. That was only this past year, so who knows? But there were at least a few people that had the 2-6 role. The first one being, I think it was Jero Mank, which is actually an anagram of Major Kern, but who knows if that's what that actually means. I mean, going for the military aspect of this, it could be. But after him, it was this guy, Angel 2-6, like the Angel 2-6, the one that announced that, Religion of Peace / Milo, that he passed on. And after that, it went to user JT4, and then went on to, was it Pierce, who was, I think, part of the organization, just from what he was talking about on the forums, talking about, staging out of South Africa. But he may have just been an old military guy if they met on one of the jobs and said, hey, check out this porn site. So it could be that. And then he handed off to Bishop. The interesting thing about this 2-6 role is no one seems to hold it for more than a few months. It's always constantly being passed on, which there could be significance in that, maybe not. But it does seem interesting that one person can't seem to hold it.
So, were written in the root source. 2-6 knew Milo personally, at least one of the 2-6s knew Milo personally. I am under the impression that all of the 2-6s knew Milo personally. And 2-6 served in the army, but it's unclear what army, or if it's just generally a term for the military, or even more like an IRA army. But Angel 2-6's chosen avatar was a line drawing of a bird of prey that was really, really similar to the insignia of the Siloas Scouts of the Rhodesian army, which is now Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
That Rhodesia is now Zimbabwe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I've got it, sorry. So another person that's definitely involved with the root source messages is Shade. You'll see him or her, probably him, referenced to a lot, and it seems like they were the holder of the purse strings, kind of, as it were. And you'll see what I mean when we kind of talk about the messages.
Kind of the accountant of the group.
Mm-hmm, kind of, yeah. And then the last person is You Religion of Peace, aka Milo, aka Dutch Milo. And we've kind of covered him a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit about him more in a minute. There's a lot of things about his history that I don't think are true. I don't think he was 14 and joined the military to kill the Nazis. I think that's just made up lore. I do, however...
But the thing about it is that if he was born around 1930, he would have joined about 1944. By the time he got to basic training and all the other stuff, it was kind of too late to go fight the Nazis.
Yeah, it would have been hard. But I do, however, think that he was actually military at one point, and you guys know why, but dear listeners, do you know why? Well, meet you, Xenophobe 51.
You can just kind of tell when you listen to somebody speak or read what they have to say. You can kind of pick up on certain things, especially if they're talking about prior military service or experience. You can tell if they're telling the truth or not. And oddly, I think this guy was. As weird of a character as this dude is, I mean, his jargon was just too accurate, and not only accurate, but period specific to like Vietnam era. And he spoke in military jargon that was outdated to when I was in, and I was in the 1990s.
Like he said, it's probably military. So we're going to call Xenophobe 51 Xeno from now on, because